Jesus Christ, for all you Muslims who don't know, the gospel of Jesus Christ is not a book. It's not a book. There's the New Testament, there's the Gospels. We call them Gospels because they contain the gospel, which is not a book given to Jesus Christ. It's a message about Jesus' sacrificial death, His resurrection from the dead,
Amen.
And His divine nature.
Yes.
That's what the gospel is. That's what the gospel is according to everyone who knew Jesus. That's what the gospel is. That's the message that false prophets come to change and alter, to keep people from being saved. Muhammad comes along and he says, you Christians, I agree with you on all kinds of things. I believe Jesus was born of a virgin. Yeah. I believe He raised the dead. I believe He cured the lepers. Yeah. I believe He even ascended to heaven. I believe He was the Messiah. There are just 3 little things I want to reject, and I want you to reject as well. He didn't die on the cross. He didn't rise from the dead, and He didn't claim to be divine. If we can agree on that, then we're in perfect agreement.
We're so close.
We're waiting for that. We're waiting for that. So Christians were like, wait a minute. We've been told all along that false prophets are going to come, and they're going to try to corrupt this gospel and to keep people from being able to understand it. And how do they do this? By distorting Christian beliefs so that Muslims think it's absolutely ridiculous because they don't understand it. And on top of all this, Muhammad comes preaching peace and tolerance and, hey, I love you Christians and Jews. By the end of his ministry, he's killing the Christians and Jews, just as Jesus said. And look at the fruits, both in his own life, sex with a 9-year-old girl, sleeping with the divorced wife of his own adopted son, all these things, all the fruits in his own life and in the lives of those who follow him, who in all of history fits the description of a false prophet according to the Bible more than Muhammad? No one. And Muslims say, yeah, the evidence is so good for him.
Well,
sorry.
In light of that claim, do you agree, or do you think Joseph Smith should be the second runner-up, Brother Glenn? I'm just taunting you with that question. I want you to.
I'd go with Joseph Smith before I go with Muhammad. If I had to pick, if I had to pick a false prophet, and I'm going to believe in him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we put them on a scale.
Yeah.
Muhammad would be like dead last.
Yeah.
And Joseph Smith would be somewhere, somewhere a little bit higher.
Oh yeah. Well, they're all going. Well, I won't make that comment. All right, Brother Glenn. Now let's start out with starting out. We got people who have no clue what Moroni is. Most people who watch know Gabriel. Moroni, before you tell us what Moroni is, what is Mormonism? Okay, people, and when I say that, I just want the very basic elements, because when I say Mormonism, people have no clue. Some people think it's a different denomination of Christianity. Some people think, it's the latest detergent that you put in your laundry. What is Mormonism?
It's a false offshoot of Christianity founded in 1830 by Joseph Smith after much self-described religious examination.
Yeah.
He founded the Mormon Church in upstate New York. The angel Moroni appeared to him later.
So this Moroni is supposedly an angel?
Yes.
Okay.
Told him the location to find the golden plates from which the Book of Mormon was translated.
Now, before you go any further, we want people to see the parallels here. Now, Muhammad, David is the expert. You correct me if I'm wrong. Muhammad, he went out and he would meditate in caves, and all of a sudden, supposedly, the angel Gabriel appeared to him, right, and began to give him revelation. Mm-hmm. Now, Brother Glenn, is it right that Joseph Smith would go out in the woods? Is that right?
Yes. Let me read from some of the Mormon scriptures.
Go ahead. Now he's going to be reading from, what's it called?
It's Joseph Smith History. It's in the back of their Doctrines and Covenants,
Yeah. So this is official
Yes.
teaching of the Mormon Church.
Yes.
All right.
And this is the story of their first vision, on which their prophets claim that the testimony of the church stands or falls.
Okay.
This is the story, and this is where Joseph Smith describes himself as being set apart for the ministry that he did.
Now, just before Glenn reads, I want to alert our viewers, remember the story of Muhammad and his first encounter with Gabriel and how he supposedly got revelations as you're listening to Glenn discuss Joseph Smith and Moroni.
This will be a long section.
Go ahead.
Joseph Smith History, chapter 1, verse 5. Sometime in the second year of our removal to Manchester, there was in the place where we lived an unusual excitement on the subject of religion. It commenced with the Methodists, but soon became general among all the sects in that region of the country. Indeed, the whole district of country seemed to be affected by it, and great multitudes united themselves to the different religious parties, which created no small stir and division amongst the people, some crying, "Lo, here," and others low there. Some were contending for the Methodist faith, some for the Presbyterian, and some for the Baptist. Now, one thing that the Mormons claim these days, Joseph Smith started here, was that, okay, first there was much religious excitement in New England, upstate New York. The others, how he claims that Mormonism rises above traditional Christianity is that there was just, these sects were fighting amongst themselves, so there must not be agreement, which he said to correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So more of the story
of
this revelation, supposedly.
So while he struggled with these different denominations fighting amongst themselves, I continue. Verse 9, same chapter. My mind at times was greatly excited. The cry and tumult were so great and incessant. The Presbyterians were most decided against the Baptists and Methodists, and all used the powers of both reason and sophistry to prove their errors, or at least make the people think they were in error. On the other hand, the Baptists and Methodists, in their turn, were equally zealous in endeavoring to establish their own tenets and disprove all others. In the midst of this war of words and tumult of opinions, I often said to myself, what is to be done? Who of all these parties are right? Or are they all wrong together? If any one of them is right, which is it, and how shall I know? While I was laboring under the extreme difficulties caused by these contests of these parties of religionists, I was one day reading the Epistle of James, 1st chapter and 5th verse, which reads, If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given to him. Never did any passage of Scripture come with more power to the heart of man than did this time to mine. It seemed to enter with great force into every feeling of my heart. I reflected on it again and again, knowing that if any person needed wisdom from God, I did. For how to act I did not know, unless I could get more wisdom than I had, I would never know. For the teachers of religion of the different sects understood the same passages of Scripture so differently, so as to destroy all confidence in settling the question by an appeal to the Bible. At length I came to the conclusion that I must either remain in darkness and confusion, or else I must do as James directs, that is, ask of God. I at length came to the determination to ask of God, concluding that if he gave wisdom, then gave wisdom to them that lacked wisdom, and would give liberally, and upbraid not, I might venture. So in accordance with this, my determination to ask of God, I retired to the woods to make an attempt.
Now notice real quickly, he retires to the woods. And this is very similar to me, is it not, David? Isn't there parallels here? Muhammad, trying to find more religious truth, retiring to caves. Let me just go ahead, Brother Glenn.
It was on the morning of a beautiful early day in the spring of 1820. I was, the first time of my life, I had made such an attempt, for amidst all my anxieties, I had never as yet made an attempt to pray vocally. After I had retired to the place which I had previously designed to go, having looked around me, I found myself alone. I kneeled down and began to offer up the desires of my heart to God. I had scarcely done so when immediately I was seized upon by some power which greatly overcame me.
Wait a minute. Can you repeat that sentence you just read, please?
I had scarcely done so when immediately I was seized upon by some power which entirely overcame me.
Okay.
And had such an astonishing influence over me as to bind my tongue so that I could not speak.
Wait a minute. Glenn, I'm sorry. That's exactly what happened to Muhammad.